So you were telling me about David Wilkerson.
So David Wilkerson was like a Midwest preacher in a small town, and he picked up a Life magazine one day and he saw all this article about these gangs fighting in New York. And he said, "Well, who's helping these people? Who's reaching out to them?" And God said, "You." And he said, "I know nothing about gangs. I know nothing about that." So he popped on a bus or whatever it was and went to New York and started ministering to on the streets to all these
Uh,
gangs. And that started Teen Challenge, right? Teen Challenge is like in the US and the States and probably around the world. And they minister to people with addictions and prison type things and so on and so on. And that's how that started. But back in the early 80s, we had established a little Christian coffee house just down the street from the local bar in this town. And so we would, I'd stand on the street corner across from the bar with my guitar, and I took a Christian bumper sticker, and I cut out all the letters and I rearranged them on guitar and said, "Invite Jesus in." And I'd be out there singing, and,
oh,
people would like, "What?" A guy, this one lawyer in town, he got me kicked off the street
oh
and
boy.
stuff like that. And then I had one guy come up and actually like hit me across the face,
Oh my
you know,
goodness.
and, but that's okay. But, you talked earlier in the podcast about, persecution.
Yeah.
So at the coffee house, we were sitting in the table there, and I was just sitting there, and this guy walked in, and he was known to be a brawler in town, big, bulky guy,
Mhm.
angry guy, alcoholic guy, and so he came in and sat down across from me on the table, and I said, "How you doing?" He says, "I'm all right." And the front of our coffee house had big glass pane windows, and he said, "Do you know what I'm going to do to you?" And I said, "No," and he said, "I'm going to pick you up. I'm gonna throw you against that wall, and then I'm gonna throw you through the front window." And
Um,
as soon as he said that, I thought about this quote in David Wilkerson's book, The Cross and the Switchblade. And when he was out on the streets when he first got there, this guy came up to him with a switchblade. He says, "You know what I'm gonna do to you?" He says, "I'm gonna cut you into 1,000 pieces."
wow.
And David Wilkerson said, "Go ahead. Every piece will still love you." And so when this guy said that to me, I immediately dropped it in my memory. And he's like leaning over the table towards me. And I said, "Go ahead. I'll still love you." And he's
Wow.
like, and he sat down, he said, "That's heavy." And he got up and he left. It was
That is amazing.
it was crazy. It was just the most amazing thing.
That is incredible. That's just goes to show when you really, a soft answer turns away wrath. And, to show
Hmm,
somebody love when they're acting like that to you is doing exactly what Jesus said to love your enemies. You love them. Hey,
mhm.
there is power in that. And just to have the faith and the willingness to be obedient to that, then God showed up in a powerful way. Wonderful
Yeah.
story.